2021. And then we have to take roll call, correct?
Jim's here.
Ollie's here.
All right.
Good to know. Okay. Jackie, I'm going to rely on you for a lot of this because this is my first time into the finance committee world. So where would we like to start besides the beginning of the agenda? Anything else we have to cover?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Anyone want any changes to the agenda? It is a hefty agenda for tonight, but all relevant.
Looks like a pretty full agenda too.
Yeah. It does look like a full agenda. And so no changes for me.
All right. We're going to go then right into the December 31st financials. I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay, good. Because mine is so little, I can't see anything. And if I blow it up, it goes off the screen.
Oh, no.
I should have run up and got a paper copy, but I didn't do it. My fault.
I'm going to share out of my Google Drive just because the reports come across a little better than they do if I try to share them out of the board book.
No problem. The easier we can see it, the better.
Yep. All right, so here is the treasurer's report coming up here for December 31st. Holly, since this is your first time, I'll kind of guide you what other board members have looked at in the past.
Okay.
Basically looking at these cash and investment balances in this column. I don't know if you can see my cursor, that column.
I can see it.
Yep, and comparing them to the last two prior years, asking any questions on large variances, things that look strange. It also is my report to you to show that what is on our ledger, which is that top chart, matches to our bank accounts, which is the bottom chart, that we're tied out and everything is accounted for. And then the second page is our investments. We have of our excess funds and where they are and what we're getting there.
The next page?
Yep, the schedule of investments, page 2.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, this one looks better on
Where
yours.
we have everything right now.
I know, as I was looking through it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so much money.
It is. And we do have a healthy excess right now, but we will probably be using that in the near future.
What will we be using it on, in your opinion?
If the state aid, if we do not get any increased state aid, we'll be using it to fund gaps in where we would have received increased state aid payments. Some of these are timed out to certain payments we make throughout the year, like all of these 1/1/25 ones, the ones that matured today. We used those to pay our bond payments. So we save up money and then we have to make a really large debt payment on our bonds. So that's what those were for. And then you'll see them again come due in the summer and again right around this time next year.
Okay. So tell me, oh, sorry, Jim, you go.
Well, Jackie, you were saying filled gaps. You're talking filled gaps for this fiscal year.
Next fiscal year.
Next fiscal, meaning July 1st of 2021?
Correct.
Well, unless we make adjustments, you can't.
Right.
If you have less revenue, we have to make tough decisions on the expenditure end of it. So.
Correct. And that's up for later in the agenda here.
So, we just can automatically fill in things because wants to be filled in. We can't, we have to keep operating looking how we operate. So, if you got it, you've heard me say this before, you got $1, you can't spend $1.10. So.
Right. I've heard you say it plenty of times, Jim, and I agree with you. So when you have to fill it in, like you just said, we had to fill it in today. It was due today, or
Yep.
it's okay. What
Yep,
if
and it was planned to be due? It's planned to be due today. So
Okay, what
this
if we
was money
didn't
we
have the
saved up
revenue?
for that purpose.
Okay, good. What if we didn't have the revenue for that?
What if we didn't have the revenue to make our debt service payments?
Yeah.
We're part of a program called the Minnesota, I'm going to lose the wording here, where the state of Minnesota guarantees us to make the payment. So if we knew we were not able to make the payment, we would have to contact the state of Minnesota, and there's a process we go through where they would make it on our behalf.
Okay.
If it is a cash flow shortage for something other than debt service, we have a financial advisor that helps us with cash flow planning, and we would issue some bonds called aid anticipation certificates, where we'd basically issue some debt that's due within a year that would help us to cash flow borrow.
Okay.
So maybe I heard you wrong, Jackie. You talk about stopgaps. I was thinking of stopgaps throughout the budget, but you're just talking about stopgaps or gaps in our
Cash flow.
cash flow. But you're not talking. You just were talking about the bond payments just a minute ago. So you're talking about two different things.
Yep. Well, two different things. So bond payments is, sometimes in our cash flow, we save up to make the bond
Right.
payments.
Right.
And the rest of it is we have these certificates or CDs timed out to when we're going to need them in our cash flow plan.
It sounds so intricate.
And just looking at Associated Bank, the bottom one there, 0.1%, 0.01%.
0.01%. Yes.
Not very attractive.
No, there's nothing super attractive about investing right now.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions right now, but that's on me. I don't know what to ask yet. Can you make this one a little bigger?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you may go ahead with what you want to talk about on this one.
I talked about a little bit about this page already, where this is what is currently on our books. We can kind of compare where we've been the last couple of years to see how our funds are trending. Different board members have looked at it differently. I know how Arlen used this when he was on the finance committee, as a projector of which direction our fund balance was heading. So he would say where we're about $1 million ahead of last year, we're in a good position.
Okay. But like you said, there's a lot that we're going to have to spend in the next few months. So
yep.
Not
So
necessarily.
is it this year? Is it a good indicator? I don't know, because this year is unlike any other.
Right. We've opened up a whole nother school.
Mhm.
So that's that $1 million, isn't it?
Essentially, but we're using some grants to help fund it. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. How much are the grants? How much do the grants pay for it?
So the grants paid for our online teachers for the first half of the school year. And so right now they're coming out of the general fund for the last half of the school year, but we have heard there is more dollars coming. We've heard rough estimates of 1.2 to 1.4 million. We just don't have access to them yet.
And so you have to write a grant to get access or rewrite
No,
it?
these grants are part of the new COVID stimulus.
Okay.
So we will have to write a grant application. It will probably be fairly simple, like the last ones were. What are you going to spend it on? And okay, you're approved. But there will be a process to get them, but we will get an allocation that is allotted to us unless we turn it down. And I don't think we will.
I don't think we will either. Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay. Where is our fund balance? Where's that coffers money? Where does that show up? Is
Not
that,
on this report.
okay, is that just the difference in last year's spending and this year's spending?
It's accumulated, but you get the right idea.
Okay, okay. All right.
Yep,
You
this
can
is
move on.
just cash right now.
So it looks like we're up cash 385,000 or so in that ballpark from last year, end of 19 to end of 20. So not as much as the year before, but certainly on the positive side at least.
Right. Okay.
Anything else on this report, or I'll pull up the next one?
Next one, I'm ready. Are you, Jim?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair. The budget next one, or is it, oh, that one? Okay.
Yeah, the budget as of 12/31, so it's
I
still
did
looking
print
at
that
the
stuff off,
adopted.
so.
Yeah, this one was,
Can you turn it all, Jackie?
I'm trying.
I know, I couldn't turn it on my computer, so I was kind of, which is fine. I can review it again. I mean, I can review it once I can read it better. What are the big things you want us to know from this?
The big things I'd want you to look at on this have to do with comparing how we spend one year to the next. And this one's taking a while to download. It's not letting me open it.
I know. Of course it can't be reached. I wonder if I have it open. I have mine open. Is yours still not working?
We're gonna see if it's in my downloads and it'll work that way.
Okay.
Then I should be able to flip it for you. It's amazing when I scan it one way and it comes through totally different on the scan, sideways.
I don't get that either.
Nope, that's the treasurer's report. We looked at that one already. All right, on this report, what we're looking at is how we've spent year to date. So this top one here, we've received, as of December 31st, $11,919,081. We'll compare that to what percentage of our budget is that to see how accurate the budget is. So that's 32.07% of what we'd budgeted. Well, the last couple years at that same date, we'd received about 29.76% of actual and 31.35% of actual. So actually, if you look at this, we've collected more money year to date than we would have in the prior years. Most of this is in our federal grants area up here because of those COVID grants. So we're going to catch those in the revised budget and add them to our budget for federal aids. And that should bring these numbers a little closer in line.
And those are 1 year grants or half a year grants?
Well, yep, one-time grants. Our biggest COVID grant we could spend between July 1st and December 31st. So we're waiting on the dates for the new grants. I believe those have spend dates out to though until September of 22. So a little longer period.
So they're at least helping us plan for next year.
Correct.
Okay. And when do you think that that information will come to us?
It's hard to say. The MDE has given out preliminary allocations. I think they're waiting on guidance from the Federal Department of Ed on what these funds can be spent on before they release it out to the school districts.
Okay. But last time we could spend it on teachers.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And are you projecting that we'll hopefully get to spend it on teachers again? Is that kind of?
I have heard they're very similar spending requirements, or at least what's projected. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what MDE is saying. They're saying that it's going to be very similar to the last round. Plus, we could spend money like on ventilation systems, addressing learning loss this summer, and other programming. But we haven't seen the official guidance yet.
Or the official amount?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, how many teachers did we purchase with that last round of grants?
8 online learning teachers.
And where are those 8 online learning teachers specifically now? Just so I can put it in my head.
Grades K through 4, correct, Karsten?
Yeah, at least one per grade. Some have 2.
And then spread out, their office-wise, they're kind of spread out throughout the district. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so none in the high school?
Not currently.
And none in 5th and 6th grade?
Not currently.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be looking at adding 5th and 6th grade in the high school in the next round?
Well, at the high school, we use Edgenuity this year, as well as the hybrid. In 5th and 6th grade, we're using the hybrid. I did talk to the admin team about doing something different with 5th and 6th grade, so we're looking at some different options. One thing that was kicked around would be hiring a 5th grade online only and or a 6th grade online only, but it doesn't seem to work real well in terms of student numbers. Another possibility that might be better long-term would be to bring in-person learning back to 5th and 6th grade if we can. So those are some of the things we're kicking around.
How would we bring that back if we don't have the room now?
Well, the guidelines from the state have changed.
Okay.
And so instead of a 6-foot social distancing requirement, if we're in person, it can be lower than that. And so really the decision comes down to, do we want to lower that 6-foot guideline or not? If we do, we could bring in-person back, but if we want to maintain the 6 feet, then that's not an option right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, with 5th and 6th grade, one of the big stumbling blocks that we've thought about is, if we had an online teacher, we're going to have a whole bunch of students switching teachers mid-year, and we're really concerned about that. So, but yeah, we've kicked around some ideas with the 5th and 6th grade teachers, and we want to keep the dialogue going.
I want to just jump ahead really quick and ask this question because I don't remember the answer, so I can make the connection in my head. Are we losing most of the kids in the 5th and 6th grade in enrollment?
No.
Oh, yeah, I don't know the actual grade by grade enrollment, but do you have that info, Jackie?
Yeah, she put it on our documents.
I do. It's one of our documents.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I remember 5th and 6th grade, but I could be completely wrong. Because it's important to know where we're losing them, where we need to improve. Looks like we lost a ton in 5th grade and a ton in 6th grade. But that could be 7th grade. Or maybe
Could you
I'm
enlarge
reading it
that a
wrong.
little bit, Jackie?
Maybe I'm reading it
I'm
wrong.
working on it.
Okay.
I think our largest loss is in the 12th grade from past.
Yeah, I think it's in the high school too.
I did see that, but I wanted to, I was looking at,
Kindergartners
So
down a little bit
grade,
than what we were hoping.
But since the beginning of the year in 5th grade, we've lost 7, most in that first month. 6th grade, we have lost 11, again, most in the first month.
so we've lost 18 kids in those 2 grades. What's the next highest? Is it senior?
Seniors, we've only lost 2.
But what were we at?
Grade is at 8.
What did we have in May of last year when we ended the school for total numbers? We're at 25.39 right now.
Yeah. So grade 5 last year would have been last year's grade 4. We ended at 194.8. Last year's grade 5, so this year's grade 6 was 192.4.
So are those the two biggest grades we've lost the most? I can't see it because it's so small. And that's not your fault. I can't see it.
Those are the most, just looking across quickly. Grade 9 would follow that up with 8 kids.
Okay. So that lends me to think that the teachers aren't telling us a story about 5th and 6th grade, that it's really not working.
Well, we did an open enrollment survey, and that is not what's coming out in that, but that'll be presented at an upcoming board meeting.
When was the survey done?
The last 2 weeks.
Oh,
Well,
gosh.
it's
Don
not
Wetter and
not really a survey, but we're looking at open enrollment forms and cataloging the reasons kids have gone elsewhere.
Yeah, Don Wedren has a rough draft, and she'll be sharing it with Jim and Pam a week from tomorrow. And I think I just really briefly looked at it, and I think we're losing kids on both ends. We're losing some kids who want to be in person all the way, so maybe they've chosen Goodhue, or somewhere else. And then we're losing too many kids for online schooling. And so I think both of those things we need to address for next year. Those are big deals.
So I need to understand it better. The kids that we have enrolled right now are also kids that are doing online learning with Red Wing.
Correct.
Those numbers are including that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, I've been communicating with a parent recently who chose to have one of her kids go to an online school out of Fergus Falls. So it's completely online. I think the student might be a 6th grader. Well, I don't know for sure the grade, but chose that online and loves the flexibility, so that they can do their figure skating lessons during the day, and do some other things. And, lots of flexibility in terms of when you log in, when you complete the homework and those kinds of things. Yeah. So it's sort of like the Edgenuity model that we have for grade 7 through 12.
Only with teachers from Fergus Falls and not Edgenuity teachers.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the who hires the teachers in the Fergus Falls program. Some of them might have their own teachers. Some schools might have their own teachers doing it, but then others might have the curriculum created by somebody else with those, like an Edgenuity hiring those teachers. I'm not sure which.
Okay.
But I'm hoping, and we have to discuss this more with the board in February and March, because we wanted to get out there as soon as possible. I think we can do better because we can tie not only the flexibility with the online curriculum, but we can have the local teachers directly involved with our kids. And
Right.
To me, that's the difference maker. So, we can offer the field trips and prom and, actually see each other, see your neighbors and classmates, on the Google Meet. So I think that's how we're gonna have to sell it.
I agree. And I know Arlen brought it up at not last week, but the last one, but you've been talking about it for a few months, Kirsten. So it's not a new thought around how we need to do better for online.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it'd be a hard thing to do in terms of doing the hybrid again next year for grades 5 through 12, the way we've been doing it. I think we have to explore some different options.
I see we're down about 140 students from last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So we definitely have an issue we have to address and get on top of to try to get that number to turn.
Do we have any idea of how many of those may come back? Just throwing it out.
Not yet. My concern is that once they leave, they stay away and they take their brothers and sisters with them. So I think it's an existential threat, especially that online only schooling.
What is the projected date of our charter school opening?
It's not this fall, but the following fall.
22?
Correct. Yeah, the latest I heard, that was several months ago, but I think they're making progress. So I'm assuming that's going to be their start date.
And they're going to offer what? K6, K5? Early childhood?
I think initially the plan is to have early childhood through, I can't remember if it's grade 5 or 6, but then eventually they want to expand into the secondary level. It is an in-person model that they've proposed. So, that's a consideration too.
Yeah, we should have an in-person model by 2022 as well. Right?
Yeah, definitely as far as schooling. So, I think this summer we ought to start talking about altering our vision to some degree, and think of some creative things out of the box. So, well, maybe they're not creative, but at least consider them for Red Wing. So, for example, it could be community school. Holly, you're more familiar than I am, I'm sure, with community schools. Or I could go on, but I think we really need to start talking about those things, because I'm convinced Red Wing can offer a really strong product in a variety of ways. So we got to do it.
When we talk about community schools, though, are you talking about opening up Jefferson full-time then again? Is that what you mean by a community school?
I really haven't, not necessarily Jefferson, but at least consider the model, that's out there. And the reason I bring it up is that there might be some funding in the governor's proposal to the legislature. And I realize it's only the governor's proposal. We have a long ways to go before decisions are made. So it may not be included or not, but there is a hint of that in the proposal. And just as an FYI, I think this is going to be a long shot, but one of the proposals that the governor is saying is that providing a one-time investment to ensure pandemic enrollment loss does not negatively impact students.
Yes, I watched him today.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got the full quote of what he was throwing at us. So I thought, okay, so what does that mean, that one-time investment, and where does it get to go? Because if we looked at Jefferson, which we tried to sell 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we did not want to invest in bringing it up to code. And so when you talk about community schools, and I put it in front because there's a model for community schools, and then there's actually a school in a community that the community builds around it. So that's where I was trying to get your, where are you going with that? Yeah.
And I really, the admin team has not identified all the possibilities yet. But, I think the board, admin, parents, you name it, should be part of a discussion starting this summer, so that we can come up with a plan for 22-23 school year.
Okay. Are we, with all of this money, I wasn't at the vote on Monday, are we going to be able to sustain keeping Jefferson open next year?
We haven't decided that at all as a board. I don't think we've had a recommendation come from them yet. I recall correctly.
Say that again, Jim. I couldn't hear you.
It hasn't been recommended or been worked out to see if we need to, or can do, or however yet on that. So there was no decision made on it either way.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. The motion actually called for 3 or 4 elementary schools, and then we'll have Jefferson if needed. So we haven't made that decision yet. We really wanted to get the motion approved during the last meeting so that the high school could do their scheduling process.
Okay.
That was sort of the big time crunch, and everything else needs to be done soon too. Don't get me wrong, but we thought at least we get the K6 7-12 model done. And by the way, just one thing here in the governor's proposal, under the title Expand Access to Opportunities for Students in Greater Minnesota, it references increase the full service community school model statewide. So again, I don't know the details. I don't know if it's something we would consider or not. I have no idea. I haven't looked at the detailed report yet. I'm just looking at the quick synopsis. So I'm not advocating for anything or
Right.
arguing against it.
Yeah, I'm trying to draw from my experience when we had the community school model. We have a couple of them in St. Paul, and they're there for location reasons, because services are all over the city. And in Red Wing, services are not all over the city. The county is downtown, like the clinic is right there. So it's a much different feel in Red Wing. Not that we can't have drop-in services for community services.
Yep, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in a community school a number of years ago up in Brooklyn Center when they put theirs in. And yeah, it is just to have the services right in the school building.
Yeah,
the dental, we had dental services in a clinic and all of that.
Yeah. So, and I can't say in all honesty that it was the best model, that it was the most effective. I know that the design behind it is 100% this should work because it's right there. It's a one-stop shop. But oftentimes we didn't have parents that wanted to shop in that way.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want everybody knowing their business. So if they needed a therapist or a dentist, they didn't want everybody seeing where they were going that day. And all the little first graders would walk by and be like, oh, did you go to the dentist? Or did you, that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, and that's very legit. I know that's one reason why we place the school-sponsored clinic in a different building, because we talked about maybe the district office, and then we thought, wait a second, people aren't going to walk in there, by Brad Johnson, Karsten Anderson, and whoever else was in the district office at the time. And so Brad and I both thought, no, offsite would be better.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So the design is wonderful, and there's many ways you can do it. But okay, that's where my head was like trying to figure out what were you meaning by a community school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I kind of hijacked the last slide to go into this slide. Was there anything else we wanted to finish up on the other one?
Just looking at the expenditures again, tracking right along with our budget there.
Okay.
If there were any questions anyone wanted to bring up on the December budget.
I think our expenditures are tracking along the line and our revenues are not as well.
Right.
And down 1,200,000 and some thousand. So, or 100, 200 some thousand. So let's hope the property taxes are low down even from it. And what is that? Yeah, right here. The state aid is down $1.5 million. So that's really the big chunk of it. So and we expect that to, and that's actually up from last year and down from the year before. So we're expecting that to hit that number.
No, because we're revising that number. So this is our adopted budget from last June. When the finance committee met in November, we decided to take enrollment down another 40 kids, I believe, off the top of my head. So that state aid number budgeted is going to come down.
So to offset that, are we doing anything on the expenditure end?
You mean like cutting them?
Making some cuts,
Right.
Whether you don't drive as far, or you don't employ as many, or you don't buy certain stuff, you can't keep
Spending.
buying and paying what you have if you don't have the revenue coming in. So I'm just asking, what's the proposal to plan to look at our expenditures?
We'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at the revised budget, and I can show the actual figures up here. But yeah, we're coming to that. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Now we got to move along. I know. So didn't need that. One last thing on this one here. The anything more on the enrollment? You're thinking?
On the enrollment one,
Anything to add?
page down here. Nothing to add. I just wanted to show Holly kind of where we're looking at our variance in this blue here.
Okay.
To the adopted budget, we're down 19.77, and we took 140 off already coming into this year, and we're going to take another 40 off, so we'll be down 180 from last school year. So instead of 2584 for a budget, we're actually going to be 2544 if the budget is approved by the school board.
Okay.
So that'll help bring this number hopefully looking closer.
Yeah, matching numbers at the end of the game are really good.
Or positive.
Right. That's the goal, right?
That's the goal. All right. Any other questions on these? Otherwise, I'll pull up the revised budget.
Nope, go for it.
All right. So this, I'll pull it up to the next page, which has the summary. We'll look at the general fund first. We had budgeted, as you can see, looking back, to take about 597,000 out of our general fund. Mostly is right here in the long-term facilities maintenance category. This was for the parking lot upgrades and pavement upgrades at Burnside. So that was a planned spend down. We're about 490,000 higher in expenditures than we were before, mostly due to continuing those 8 online teachers for the remainder of this school year. Now, as we talked about just a little while ago, we have some grant money coming in to pay for that, is what we're intending. So even though the budget looks like we're spending down with that grant money coming in, we should be more break even, but I didn't feel I could include that revenue in the revised budget until it was officially granted.
Right. That was wise.
$1 worth of savings in busing when we went distance learning for about 40 days, I want to say. But over time, we have added, to prepare for COVID and the scenario with hybrid and social distance classrooms, we've added about $1 million in staff since last June.
Okay.
Food service fund is looking to make a little bit of money. They're right here at about 72,000 operating in summer food service. And this is being pretty conservative on the revenue end. Brent is actually projecting he could make a little more. The thing to watch here in food service is you see it'll bring our fund balance in food service to about 322,000. We'll talk more about this in an upcoming operations meeting, but the state has a limit on the food service fund on how much you can have in fund balance. It's 3 months operating expenses, which is roughly $400,000. And Brent has some equipment needs.
Okay.
So we're going to talk some more about that and how to not hit $400,000. So a very different problem than the general fund is looking at right now.
Right.
Community services fund. So that's our community ed fund. It also has in there our ice arena and any non-public school flow-through money. So if a non-public school files their enrollment with the state, they get some money through us for textbooks and things like that, that we just are the conduit for. So they're looking, depending on which program, to where they could add a little bit, or they might have a little bit of the losses just because of how the programs are running this year. Fund 6 down here is our construction fund. These are the bonds, the dollars remaining in the bonds we sold in 2016 for building improvements. We have one pay app for that, and then there is a project going on at Sunnyside this spring and summer. That should wrap that up.
What are we doing at Sunnyside?
There has to be something with and Kevin could explain more if he was on here, but the freezer, the walk-in freezer cooler at Sunnyside, some of the outside wall needs to be worked on around that.
Okay. I wouldn't even have a first clue, so okay.
Yeah. And something with the installation is not quite right, and it needs to be redone. But
Well,
Kevin and Alex,
yeah, I went to kindergarten there, so it's not exactly a new school.
right.
Yeah.
And the remaining funds are our debt service. That is where we accumulate our property taxes and state aids to make our debt service payments on any issued bonds. Custodial fund is where we keep the money because we are the fiscal agent for the Environmental Learning Center. They run through there, and then also the fiscal agent for scholarships are also in that fund. You can see our operations of the clinic there, and then our OPEB trust in Fund 45.
What does OPEB mean?
Other post-employment benefits. So back in, I want to say 2009, the school board issued a bond to fund a trust for post-employment benefits. So things like health insurance for our retirees. We had an actuarial valuation done, and we sold a bond. So this will help us fund those retiree insurance payments into the future. And then the debt service on that bond is below. We've actually paid that bond off. So what's remaining in there will eventually get reconciled back to our property taxpayers. We're just waiting for the state to do that.
Okay.
That's for a whole nother meeting, Holly.
I know, I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
We'll have our investors come in at some point and discuss some of this stuff, so. That's,
Yeah.
They usually come in semi-annually.
It blows your mind away on that stuff, so.
I was like, am I reading this right? Okay.
So if we take out, on the expenditures, the long-term facility maintenance of 557, we're basically 20,000 over budget.
In total.
LTFM money is already that money we got from the state for that type of a project such as the Burnside School.
Right.
So
we had at the end of last fiscal year, we had an accumulated fund balance there of 857,000. So operations decided to use that to redo the parking lot. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, just as a point of clarification, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, but if we ever went into the deficit in the long-term facilities maintenance account, then we get the money back eventually from the school. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that, but either we have the money or we would get the money depending on the project.
Right. So we can deficit spend to the extent of our next year's levy authority. Mm-hmm.
We should probably have an update at our operation meeting next Monday night as to that project at Burnside on the parking lot to see how it came in and all that. It's got to be done because it was done last summer and that. I cannot recall us getting an update on the finished project last fall, but could have. So.
Yeah, we can add that for Monday night. Another question for you, Jackie, will we be ready to talk about the food service fund balance limit and other expenses that we're anticipating or not for Monday night?
I don't know. I know you sent that email out. I was waiting for Brent to respond to see if he's ready or not. When he and I talked, okay. I know we talked about it either February or March.
Okay. Yeah, right now the agenda for that, by the way, Jim, would be the Twin Bluff Playground and Burnside parking lot update.
And if Brent is ready, we can have that
Yeah.
discussion too.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
The remainder of this packet goes into more detail for you, for the public. This will get posted to the website, finance website, once it's approved. It shows our actual revenue or actual expenses, depending on the page, for last school year, what we had planned for in May and June in the adopted budget, what's changing in the revised budget, and the budgeted difference. Each page at the bottom has some comments onto why there are wide swings.
And I think on that, Jackie and Madam Chair, I think we should have some narrative on there explaining the COVID money that we got since our grant, state aid and federal is up, just shy of
Significantly.
950,000. We should have that because that's not thing that's going to be long term. Can't expect it
Right.
in 4 years from now. So we should be aware that it's a one-time thing. Just kind of spell that out a little bit. So,
Yep. I'll add that.
Okay.
So then there is, whoa, that was paging too fast. There's a page then for each budget on the revenue and the expenses with any applicable comments. Go back up a little. For example, the food service one, there's a lot of shifts in the food service fund, but mostly because instead of running a school nutrition program and a child and adult care food program this year, we are running the one summer food program. So all of our revenue got moved to the one program.
and maybe a little narrative there because USDA is giving us that money now through the end of the school year. Is that right? Or end of
Yep.
September or end of the school year?
End of August right now.
And that was very nice to have that.
Yes.
That doctors come in.
Yes,
Originally, it was
they're
at
doing one thing.
the end of December, and then they extended it, I know, for another 8 months. Or
Community ed is the next page. We're biggest things here is we're looking for loss of rental revenue, both in the pool, the Twin Bluff pool, but mostly in the hockey arena for the time we were closed.
Wow.
And then just adjustments. We had some, when we make the budget in May and June, sometimes we don't have final state and federal allocations for the grants for community ed or the general fund. So I made the adjustments to actual. They also have received a little bit, not as much as the general fund in COVID grants from the county and the United Way. I should add a note there too. It's a couple of summary tabs here. Summary on the revenues when I get down to that page. Yeah, there's a page for each fund
Okay.
and then a summary of the revenues on the operating and the non-operating funds.
just so you know, Madam Chair, you're responsible for all this. Your name's written all
I'm memorizing it right now.
totally responsible for all of this.
Yeah, it's going in this memory bank of mine. I have a picture
Amazing.
perfect.
All the good, you can take the credit, and all anything goes wrong. Uh-oh.
I'll say, well, I put it in the other guy's hands and he just didn't get back to me right.
That's what the treasurer's position is,
Balance the budget, come out ahead.
No, I just be responsible for it.
Yeah.
So here's the general fund with the comments here. Online only teachers, 2 custodians, the assistant principal, all the supplies, materials, and technology for COVID, and building costs and support for operating Jefferson.
Can you just add the addition of online teachers, put the number of teachers there too? Because you have the custodians and then the assistant principal.
And what about
that was a question Holly asked.
And what about the student support coordinator at Jefferson?
It actually isn't an additional cost since we reassigned her from another position. We ended up cutting that position and adding. It was shifting cost. I could add it, but
no, I was just curious. We didn't add any. Seems like we're operating on such thin ads for what we've just gone through. And what I mean by that is I feel like we could add more staff to help us. More things to help us. It's a pretty slim list of what we've added for what we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we can afford more. I'm just saying.
There's 2 different ways. That's 2 different issues, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Wants and needs.
Yes.
Oh, Jackie, I'm wondering if you should include the cost for substitutes on that list.
Yes.
Oh, I can, yeah.
Yeah, permanent substitutes and the increased daily rate of pay for substitutes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, do we have a blanket number of how much we've spent on subs this year?
I can get it for you, but I don't have it on the top off the top of my head.
Is it way over what we normally spend on subs?
Yeah.
I would assume yes, but I don't know.
It is and it isn't because distance learning is saving us. Karsten, I just sent him some notes on this and I recall because he thought we'd maybe saved some, but I think distance learning kind of righted where we were going. So we didn't need as many subs during distance learning. We'll have to see how many staff we have to place on quarantine through the spring here.
Right.
And I think staff members are saving their personal days, which is good because it's helped us here so far this year, but then it also likely means they'll be using them down the stretch. So we'll see how those numbers are impacted.
How long do they carry over?
I'll look that up as we're chatting and then I'll let you know.
Okay. Was it indefinitely or do you have to use them by a certain? That's what I was wondering.
You have to use them. You're capped at how many you can carry over into the next year. So I'll look it up real quick.
Okay. All right. We are coming upon an hour for our meeting. Pardon?
So we haven't even talked about the other big topic on there, whatever the reductions.
The reductions, yes.
Some areas.
Should we agree to go over this on our own and come up with questions and move to that piece?
We can do that. Do we want, at this point, are you comfortable recommending it to go forward to the board is what I need on the revised budget at this time? Or do you want to review more?
I'm comfortable recommending it, but that's not necessarily meaning I completely have read through it. So what does that mean if I say in 4 days, like, oh, wait a minute, stop?
What they want to do is bring it to the next board meeting and approve the revised budget is what they want us to do.
Right, but if we, look at it and we see something, then in the next board meeting, can we say we need to move this to another school board meeting to approve the revised budget?
Well, what
Well,
it is, it's just a recommendation from the committee to the board, and they can add, subtract, however they wish. But
Or postpone, or,
yeah.
another possibility would be if the revised budget is approved, there may be some additional changes that are needed before the end of the fiscal year. And I know Jackie doesn't like doing this, but we could have a second revised budget. It might make sense this year because of federal grants and so many unknowns. So that'd be my suggestion.
That makes sense to me, just with the grant, that we don't know what's coming in and what we can use it for.
Right. The question
So-
is, can we wait a month on the revised budget, Jackie and Karsten? We do, we probably have much more questions, and this is Holly's first meeting, so.
Right. We could, other than it kind of starts the conversation for the reductions. So that I don't know from a board standpoint, can we start having conversations on reductions without talking the revised budget? Comfort level there, I guess.
And when you say reductions, meaning reductions where?
For next school year.
I mean, are you talking across the board or staff?
That's the conversations we need to have yet.
Karsten, can we wait?
Yeah, I think, definitely the board can wait on approval of the revised budget. However, I think we should at least set some informal targets so that we can start identifying tiers of reductions that we're going to need, because we know we have to do reductions. It's just a matter of how much and where. So the technical approval of the revised budget can certainly wait, but I think internally we would start creating some scenarios.
So just so everybody knows, staff is our biggest cost.
By far.
Right.
So you can't cut pencils and papers and staples and paper clips and meet what we may be seeing down the road. So.
By the way, if I could jump in real quick, I have an answer to Holly's question. Each teacher is granted 3 personal leave days per year, and they can carry over up to 3 into the following year.
Can they carry those 3 with them for a long time? Can they end up with 30?
Just from one year to the next, they can only carry over 3.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
So somebody could have 6 right now.
I'm sorry?
Somebody could have 6.
Correct.
And then they either go away or they have to use them.
Correct.
Got it.
Or at least 3 of them would go away unless they use them. Right.
Got it. Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of money things out there right now that we don't have answers to. That seems to be always the case about money, that we need more. We don't know where it's coming from. We're going to have to, like Jackie, you work the magic. Like they say, borrow from Peter to pay Paul, or however that works. So
That's a dangerous one.
well, borrow from this fund to put in that fund, or I know she does it legally, but it's a game.
Don't encourage her to be illegal.
No.
Oh, Jim, I don't think I could. I don't think she has it in her.
No, I don't think so either.
All right. So is the plan to table this for now?
Yes.
Okay.
And when do we meet next? February what?
The last Monday in February. Unless we decide we need one before that.
And that would just be if we got some information coming to us that we don't have now,
Correct.
right? If I read over, or board member Bryant read over it and he came up with something, or if the state comes back with something.
Let me ask this question. What's our timeline to I'm only asking, what's the timeline we have to be on notice if we have to have staff reductions?
Yeah, let me look that up, Jim.
I know the timeline.
You have to notify people?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's different whether it's a funding negotiation year or a non-negotiation year.
Okay.
It'll take me just a second here.
The reason I asked that, Madam Chair, is maybe in 2 weeks, we want to have another finance meeting on the second Monday of the month to go over any of this to present if we need to at the second board meeting of February. I'm just going kind of lay out the timeline here.
I'm writing that down. Second Monday of the month is what? The 16th?
8th.
The 8th? I will be knee deep in nose surgery. So you got that one, board member Bryant?
Well, you need to, well, I just threw it out there as an off Monday, so we could do it another time.
I prefer not to have the nose surgery, but I can't walk around with a crooked head the rest of my life. Like, it's just not going to work for me.
By the way, I have the information here. First, by February 1st, teachers need to submit retirement letters, extended leave of absence requests, and sabbatical leave requests. The retirement letters are only for those who are eligible for severance benefits, which would be our retiring teachers now. This preliminary timeline calls for board action on a revised current year budget on or before February 15th, as well as board review of a 5-year financial plan and an administrative report to the board on the need for reductions. So again, that's listed as a preliminary timeline. You know, we could certainly adjust it to the first meeting in March. But in the meantime, you know, Jackie and I, as well as the building leaders, will, you know, develop potential reductions for us to consider so we don't fall behind in that part.
Okay.
What's the fourth Monday of February? Is that like the 22nd?
Yes, the 22nd.
So if we dive into this stuff then and present it at the meeting on the 1st of March, is that ample time to start whatever wheels
Process?
going forward that need to be done?
Karsten,
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
And the reason I say that is that, let me just check here, point out the most significant ones. So by March 15th, the high school or George will present recommended teacher allocations to me. And of course, I can go up or down based on that. And then like in late March, around the 22nd through the 26th of March, we review bumping rights of employees with the exclusive representatives of the bargaining groups. And so we'll have time even from March 1st until that time to let them know that. And then by the end of March, we like to meet with employees potentially impacted by the proposed reductions. So it'd be a much shorter turnaround time, but we can do it.
Okay, we can talk tomorrow too, a little bit on the agenda items too.
You bet. You know, the biggest factor that sometimes limits us has to do with tenured teachers because we have a very strict deadline from the state so that we have to make those decisions earlier rather than later. But we have a lot of probationary teachers and not as many tenured teachers that could be impacted. So obviously we'd still want to make those decisions as soon as possible, but you know, that's kind of the reason why we have a little time.
So why don't you at some point present that date for the tenured ones, just so we know. I'm not saying we are going to, but we should know that.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, just to add a little bit more, we have board action on classroom teacher allotments done or planned for April 19th. Board action on administrative recommendations for reductions also on April 19th. And then we need to provide the board resolutions and notices and termination of and non-renewal of probationary teachers and of hearings for the tenured people, again, scheduled for April 19th. So if we make all those deadlines, we meet all the statutory requirements for notifying tenured teachers. And this is a pretty cautious approach. We could actually do it a little bit later than that and still meet the deadline, but we like to do it in April if we possibly can.
I like that time. I like that time frame. How about you, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
So we probably don't need another meeting until the regular schedule.
Until the end of February.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I am too, because this month is crazy. This month coming up.
Hey, we're 3/4 of the way through January. That's a good sign. And the other thing is, yesterday, the Packers lost.
That is a good thing.
I hope Lisa's not listening.
I was so happy. You could not even believe it. Anyways, Jackie, carry on.
Yeah. So anyway.
So I have pulled up here kind of my notes on the 5-year budget projection. I included some reference points for you at the beginning. So in 2018, our referendum plan had an ending fund balance equity for fiscal 22 at 2.7 million. Our FY20 audited fund balance equity was 5.5 million, and our projected with the revised budget for FY21 is 4.4 million. These are the assumptions I used. The Finance Committee in November recommended an enrollment projection for next year is 2,551 ADM, average daily membership, or students, for lack of a better term.
And what are we at right now?
What was it? 25.
55 right now. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, 25.55 right now. Through the first 5 months.
Yep.
Did you say we're looking at an increase?
No, this is flat. I'm looking at flat.
Okay. Basis. Got it.
Yep. Increases from the legislator to our basic general aid, we're projecting 2 years of 0% and then 3 years of 1%. Fees, admissions, and interest, no increases. Other state aids, no increases. Current operating referendum will expire in fiscal 24. And our COVID federal aid does not continue. Staff salary increases at 1%. Our health and dental insurance are increasing at an assumed 10%. We pray it comes out lower, but after the last round, I wanted to be as conservative as possible. Purchase services, so our contracts with things like the busing company, teachers on call, companies like that would go up 3%. Utilities, we are going to hold steady because our solar credits help with that. And then transportation, we are contracted at 2.5% with them. If we did no reductions, and with these assumptions, our fiscal 22 ending fund balance equity would be 465,000. So that is not a good option. So
that's horrifying.
Yes. I did 4 scenarios and there are graphs and some numbers in your packets. Scenario 1 would reduce our budget for next year by $4 million. This would bring the fund balance variance, so revenues versus expenditures for next year, to a break even, almost, and the FY22 ending fund balance would be around 4.9 million. In scenario 2, it proposes reductions of 2.2 million. This would bring us back on track with our referendum spending plan that we from 2018. And our FY22 ending fund balance would be around 2.8 million. Scenario 3 would reduce 1 million. And this is, like I said earlier, roughly equal to the amount of extra staff we added for the 2021 school year. We'd have an ending fund balance of 1.5 million. Scenario 4, we'd reduce, and I see I have a spelling error there, 3 million. I was just looking for a mid-range option between number 1 and number 2, and would result in an ending fund balance of about 3.8 million.
And this, you're clear, your projection is over a 1-year fiscal budget, those reductions? Not
yes.
over.
Oh, that would be just for fiscal 22. And in fiscal 22, we'd have to look at what we were going to do for fiscal 23. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Can we see the little graphs?
Yeah, we can bring them up. So this is no changes. It does show out 5 years. I'm talking about the second column over. Gives us little yes and no's here. Or did we meet our fund balance reserve? Yep, we're okay. Or no, first one is SOD. Are we in statutory operating debt? If we make no reductions and we continue to make no reductions, we would be in statutory operating debt by the second year. By fiscal 23. Did we achieve our fund balance goal? No.
Can you blow it up a little bit, please?
Yeah, I can do that.
When was the last time we hit SOD?
We were in SOD when I started in 2004. It was the 2008 referendum that brought us out. And then the second page is some fund balance history. I'm going to shrink this down just a touch so it all gets on the screen. So it gives a couple years of history, projected for FY21, and then projected going forward. So that would be if we did nothing.
Okay. Was that scenario 1?
This is scenario 1. That was base with no changes.
That was the base. That was no scenario.
That was the depressing one where we ended with $400,000.
Yep.
So this would be $4 million reductions in next year. We would not be in SOD until our referendum fell off. And we would achieve our fund balance with no further reductions for 23, as long as our assumptions stay constant.
And that gets us right back to a referendum in how many years?
24 is when it falls off. So then again, history and falling off after the referendum is done. So that was the $4 million. Scenario 2 was the $2.2 million. And this one scanned upside down, and I didn't catch it.
That's why I printed it off, so I could read it.
Are you sure your head isn't upside down?
I have to stand on my head. Wouldn't that be pretty?
Just saying. It's okay, Jackie, because it's the story of my life.
Story of my last week.
Uh-huh.
Over here for everyone to see.
Uh-huh. It's all right.
So this was 2.2. It would get us through next year. We would not be in SOD in FY23, but we'd probably have to plan for more cuts to meet our fund balance reserve goal. And the fund balance bar graph showing it starting to fall off again in 24. Let me know if I'm going too fast.
Nope, you're good.
Scenario 3 was $1 million. And this was the one that was equal to the staff we've added for this year. We would be okay in FY22. We'd be out of SOD and above our fund balance goal, but we'd have to, again, make more adjustments in FY23 unless some of our assumptions changed. And then there's the fund balance graph to go with that one. Again, we'd be negative there by FY23 instead of 24. And then the last option was a middle of the road. This one's upside down too.
Make it a little bigger, please. Thank you.
Would be if we did 3 million, we'd be good for a couple years, and then we'd see we'd go our fund balance would go quickly when we got into fiscal 24, which is also when our referendum falls off. And then the fund balance graph to go with that option. Questions, comments, different data you'd like to see?
That's a lot to digest. Thank you for putting all that together. All I can think of is cuts. In my first thought in my head.
Yep.
And yeah.
From my point of view, if I had to make a recommendation, I would recommend the 2.2 because it brings us back to our referendum spending plan. And then we could reassess in FY23 to see if additional cuts or reductions were needed, to see if we get some of that student population back when and if we come back in person. And that just what FY22 looks like.
And that's with a charter school opening that fall.
Fall of 23, yep, or fall of 22 for the 22-23 school year, yeah.
Right, so that's a huge piece. Would it still be scenario 2 putting in the factor of the charter school?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to reassess in 23 to see we will know more at that point what the charter school could draw.
Okay.
And if any of the options we do for next year have hurt or helped our enrollment. And we'll also know what the legislature did for the funding biennium.
Okay. Very good points. Board Member Bryant, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is not totally unexpected because of COVID and declining enrollment. Greater than what I thought it was going to be, but so we got a little bit of work to go in front of us as we try to figure out what we got to do, because I'm a believer of having a fund balance that's reasonable, not too low and not too high, but we still have to have a fund balance because it's starting to rain, but it's not, we got to wait for that. You got to have it for that really rainy day. So, but I think we need to bring this to the board to, at some point, to decide and have that discussions as we're going forward. We have to do something. Standing still, not doing anything is not something I'm going to support or be in favor of. So
Correct. The base, you mean? If we just did status quo.
And spend 4 million of our 3.9 or 4 million of our fund balance to status quo is unacceptable to me. So.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
What that is for many people to weigh in and have that conversation and discussion. A recommendation coming from administration. I know that you had a date down the road. You said you're going to do that. I don't think it's anything we want to present at this point to the board until we get a recommendation from administration to digest and look at to see what we're going to do.
Yeah. Has this been discussed with your admin, Karsten?
No, we wanted to share the information with this group first, but
Okay.
literally as we were speaking, I emailed the admin team to let them know about Jackie's recommendation for next year, just so that we can, kind of set our minds to how much we may need to cut.
Yeah. We have talked reductions with them. We have not put numbers to it yet.
Yeah, we all know that reductions have to be made.
Yeah, there's no joy in having to do this. It's just the fact that we're in the position we need to look at what's best down the road. So.
Right.
On that note, do we want to move on and, or do we want to put a date or something you'd like me to bring back in February?
Bring back to us and the board?
Yeah.
With the admin team?
Would the finance committee like this to go to the board in February, or would they like to discuss it more at the finance committee in February?
Can we be on the same time frame as the other revised budget plan? I mean, it makes sense to me to have it kind of be a little bit of that board meeting be focused on finances. Just so we can have a chance to hear what admin has to say.
That was the March board meeting?
Yes, I think it's March 1st.
Are we having a board meeting during spring break?
I believe it's scheduled the Monday after spring break. Lisa, could you please double check that?
Is that too far?
Well, next one's February 28th. Is that spring break week? Is that what you decided?
Oh,
no, that would be our finance meeting day, isn't that? February 28th, the fourth Monday in February?
22nd.
February 28th is a Sunday.
22nd is a February.
Okay,
yeah.
March 1st.
Are we having a board meeting that day, March 1st, or is it the 8th?
Lisa's going to double check.
Yeah, the March dates are March 8th, the 15th, and then the 22nd for a workshop.
Oh,
Yeah, we moved the meeting because of spring break.
I forgot that. You're right.
Okay, so I'll bring this and the revised budget then to the March 8th meeting.
Does that give us ample time?
Yeah, does that work with our timeline, Karsten?
Yeah, we'll make it work. I'd rather have some questions and kind of moving together on this. But the admin team's not going to wait until, the board, reviews that. We're going to start running scenarios now. So
Because
we'll
we'll
be
have a
fine.
recap of your meeting on February 22nd with admin.
Yeah, we may not have specifics to share, but we can certainly talk about, kind of the topics we've reviewed. Yeah. And by the way, this is, once again, we're able to do this because the board did make a decision at the last meeting in terms of grade configurations. So that was a big deal because now we can kind of put our heads around exactly what the structure might look like. And I realize we don't have a decision yet about Jefferson, but at least we can talk about, where the elementary teachers are going to be, what's the high school target, those kinds of things. So we'll make it work.
Okay, I'm good.
Yep, me too.
All right. The other two, the next item, let me see. Sorry, my computer, I had the agenda on, fell asleep. I believe it was the corporate credit cards was next.
I think you're right.
So this was referred to the finance committee by the school board at its first meeting in January.
Yes, do you have a little printout we could look at?
So I just took this right off of that meeting's agenda with everybody's card limits.
Awesome.
I'm going to just say I inherited most of these card limits and I've just been renewing them. So the logic behind them, I don't really know, but I am open for discussion. I can say my card is, it doesn't leave the office, but it is like the master card on the district's account. That's why it has the large limit. Kevin's card has the large limit because of technology. For example, last spring, as we were in the throes of going into distance learning, we bought $80,000 worth of Chromebooks on his card from Best Buy.
Right.
But the rest, I don't know how they were set back when we opened our cards. Oh, I think our first set of corporate cards were in the late 2000s.
So our burn. I'm sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay, and I was just going to say they've kind of evolved over time as the building or the department has had a need and requested increases.
Okay, so is there a reason? I didn't want to interrupt, sorry.
Yeah, like I said, I think at one time all the principals had a limit of $3,000, but because of one reason or another, some departments have come back and asked for increased limits and they've just kept being rolled over.
Right, so that's what I was looking at, was Burnside's was 5,200 and the rest are 3.
Right.
Do you know why, Karsten?
I think
and
it's like what
6.
Jackie said, there must have been a particular situation. I don't know, maybe people went to a conference or there was some purchases. I have no idea. It's just really odd because one is higher than the others.
Well, yeah, because, and then the director of special ed is at 4, which to me, I would think it would need to be higher.
And Sonia's not even there anymore. Or couldn't be gone.
Right. So we were discussing, should it be held by, on our list, should it be the position or should it be the name? How should we categorize it? that doesn't really matter to me all that much as long as the list gets updated, which it is, because Sonia just left us last week and we don't have a replacement, or do we?
We don't yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see where Arlen is coming from, because if we approve the names of the card holders and the positions and the limit, then it makes sense that if there's a change in the card holder, that it would go back through the board. One option, though, would be to say something like current card holder, and then change the recommendation to say, I move to approve a list of position titles and limits, or something like that, just so that we don't have to go back and forth all the time. And I will say, it's not, like Jackie said the other day, it's not even necessary to approve this at the board level.
Right.
I was trying to think back, why in the world would this come up? And, because I would not dream something like this up myself. So it must have been an auditor in one of the 3 or 4 school districts where I've worked who suggested this for whatever reason, just as a matter of transparency. And I don't know if that was in Red Wing or another school district where I worked, but we really don't even have to do it.
We don't have to make a motion or do anything around it. It's just good information for the finance committee to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
And we
Especially
could
when it
approve
comes to
it with
credit
just
card.
positions. Mhm.
Yeah. So we have a lot of flexibility, in other words, as far as what we do.
How easy is it to increase a credit limit?
Pretty easy. Well, since we approve it, it would have to go through the school board. But for me it's just a monthly spending limit that I can do on chase.com.
Right. So if we moved all principals up to 6 and the special ed director, I mean, if you just did that within the finance and made this a little more consistent, does that have to go through the board?
Not unless the board would like me to.
I would just like to see it more consistent, and maybe,
Or maybe lower the numbers.
either way, I mean, if they have to
Right.
spend the money, they have to spend the money,
So really, the real question, if you want to change this, is what I would have is who approves these purchases once they're made by somebody in the card holder?
Good question.
So all the card holders have to turn in their receipts every month. We match them up to the credit card bill. So they would sign off on their credit card purchases. And then before we pay the credit card bill, they do go through me for a second review.
So that to be approved and verified as being school related.
Yep.
yeah, you get a list of things you can buy and things
Or
you
you might,
cannot buy.
it might be, or you might say, I bought, or paid for meals at a conference or something. And that.
Right. Yep. And then if they did that, I would expect them to list who they all paid for on their receipt.
Right.
And then every time we pay the Chase bill, it is included on the claims report that goes in the consent agenda.
I've had cards through my district too, and I couldn't tell you if it went through the board. All I know is if I didn't do my receipts in 5 days, I got my card cut off. Do you do that, Jackie?
And I look at, obviously, we have to, with everything that's been on in the past, there's checks and balances for things. I totally get that. But there isn't, I think everybody on that list is there for a reason, because they need it and they deserve it. There's nothing like, oh, this person's going to take advantage of it. I don't think any of them will on this list.
No.
So I don't know why we have to keep approving it, as long as we have a policy or procedure in place to checks and balances. Because once we get audited, was it superintendent in, was it Shakopee before Redmond went up there? Wasn't he accused of some?
Yeah, and he spent time in federal prison too, as I recall.
Okay, good. I couldn't remember if he was pled guilty or found guilty. So
yeah,
there has to be checks and balances on at least on the private or public side of money. So It's just probably one of those things that we have done. We've always, why do we do it? We always have done it, and maybe we don't need to do it.
I have a question, Carson. Do you often spend your $5,000?
You know, I hate using the school credit card. I hate it. And so I rely on others to be purchasing items. My guess, I don't remember for sure, but my guess is that, maybe Glenda used to sign me up for conferences and then use my credit card, or maybe she'd use Jackie's.
Mine.
So
Lisa uses mine most of the time too.
yeah, and then the one time I've used it in the past was, for paying for the hotel rooms at the school board association, so that we could all just have it paid for, before going. And so Glenda had figured out a way that all that could be paid for in advance, and then I could just pick up the invoice at the end. And then if there were board members who spent money on a movie or something, or room service, then that would be on their own bill.
Right.
So, assuming that works, then I'd rather not even have a card, to be honest with you. And that would probably be, that wouldn't be a bad thing, because, I'm the one who oversees others, and oversees Jackie. And so, then I'm kind of overseeing the whole process. But, we don't want to make it problematic for the school board members either.
I think the only issue I have is just making the limits more comparable to each, admin gets this chunk, directors get this chunk. It's not all over the map. As far as voting on it, it doesn't, I don't feel like I need to be aware, other than just the finance committee just says, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Okay, good to know.
Sure. Well, one option, kind of just based on your comments, is we could indicate in the notes that the finance committee recommends not getting yearly board approval, but that either the finance committee could look at it periodically, or at least the cardholder names, positions, and limits will be shared to anyone who requests the information, or something like that.
Are the expiration dates the same for all the cards, or are you all over the map with those, Jackie?
They're the same for all the cards.
Right. So just review it annually with the finance committee?
Yeah, one less, probably save us 15, 20 minutes at a meeting, especially.
Yeah.
Virtual.
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
Yep, we can just make it part of the January finance committee meeting instead.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Just a question on Nicole, their Tower View principal, is that our Tower View, isn't that run through special ed, Goodhue County ED?
It's
CD?
operated by Goodhue County Ed District. Nicole, used to be Nicole Jack, she got married, is the principal at River Bluff and is also overseeing Tower View this year. But we've always, because the majority of the students are Red Wing residents, we've always run the budget under Red Wing schools.
Yeah, I was just curious. I just know there was a different animal out there as for budget reasons. So.
Can you make them just more uniform, the limits?
Would you like to see them all go down to 3,000 for the principals or up to 6? I can tell you they typically do not hit their limit.
The 3,000 ones don't, or the 6,000
Right.
one doesn't?
Nobody is near their limit every month.
Right. It really doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not that overly concerned about different limits. I mean, if the chair wants to have something, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. I just, having used one, it's kind of like, well, can we put this on your card because I'm over my limit? It's like, we have the same job. Why don't you have the same limit as me? And I've run into that quite a bit, where people wanted to use my card because they ran over their limit. And we didn't, like, why don't we have the same limit? So just to be more uniform.
Okay.
Yeah, like the Colville one, should Min still continue to have one?
I asked Dawn about that before we did this for the board agenda in January, and she thought Min should stay active until she fully retired at the end of the school year.
That's fine. By me.
Yep.
I was just curious. Okay.
All right. Last thing on the agenda is a bank request for proposals. This is another item that came out of the first January board meeting. I did a request for banking services with the charter school I worked with last year. This is also the same format we used for Red Wing last time we went out. Is there interest still in doing this? Timing, I guess, is my question. Any other things you'd like to see included?
Is there a time frame you're asking for? You kind of moved a little bit quicker than I could read. Is there
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
year, an annual, 5-year, or anything like that? I don't know what the proposal is. I probably have it here, but
I haven't done anything.
no, I don't.
We haven't done anything for Red Wing in probably 10 years, looking back at it. We have never put a time limit on how often we would do it.
I guess my question was, is this proposal for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? That you're asking them to provide this information?
Oh, it doesn't state.
Yeah. I don't know, do we need, I would think if I was somebody, so what do you want me to bid on here? So currently what it's at? I don't know.
Most
I
have
think it's
given
good
me,
to- I think it's good to ask our local banks that that reside here, do business here and pay property tax here. They should at least have an opportunity to get some of the school district's business. So just like buying locally, I think supporting buying locally and supporting our local merchants. So. Somebody else think that, do we need a time frame on it, for 2 year cycle? I don't know.
When was the last time we changed?
I want to say 2008 or 2009. We changed from Wells Fargo to what at the time was White Rock Bank, is now First Farmers and Merchants.
Oh,
Maybe ask them. Maybe they don't want to do 1 year. Maybe they want longer. I don't know. That's fine. I like the idea of asking them. And there may be interest, may not be, but you don't know unless you ask.
Yeah, I've done it for other school districts before and been turned down because they have too many school districts already and the collateralization requirements were more than they could handle.
Sure.
okay.
But every local bank is different.
And I guess I'm curious as to why now? Why are we looking at it now? Like,
It got brought up at one of the last meetings with the January, December, where we talked about approving all these banks from outside the
Got
area. And why don't we have any local ones on this list? Well, we haven't asked them. So
that's okay. That's what I was wondering, just to be refreshed.
yeah, I think it was the meeting in December.
Jim?
Yeah.
First Farmers and Merchants is local, isn't it? It was on that list.
Were they on that list? Okay, but
Yeah.
you got merchants, you got First Farmers and Merchants is got banks throughout southeast and southern Minnesota.
Correct.
Stewartville, Fairmont, LaCenter, Cannon Falls, Red Wing. So they're just one of the banks. Yeah, and I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah.
And we don't know, do we using the local bank in Red Wing or are we using the First Farmer bank somewhere else? Because
No, we use a local branch here in Red Wing.
Well, I think if we want to move forward with this, it's another thing to do, but it's not a bad idea. We should send it.
Okay.
My
When would-
other question is, do we want to use it during our fiscal year, wait till our fiscal year, or at any time? I don't know what that answer is.
If we wanted to switch on the fiscal year, which is July, I would recommend we start sending something out soon with a due date of either late February or our March meeting, because it does take 2 to 3 months to get the paperwork done to switch if we're going to switch and order new check stock and all of that business.
So are our checks, are we using First Farmers and Merchants right now for our main checking? Or we
Yes.
just use the, oh, we are?
Yep.
Oh, I was under the impression when I was looking at the list, it was more for the investment side, what we're getting for rates.
Nope, they hold our funds for checking and everything like that. The others on the list, MSDLAF is investments, PMA is also investments, and then Wells Fargo does the OPEB trust.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask, I guess. I mean, we made
No,
that
it doesn't.
business at First Farmers, and I think our money market rate right now is 0.25%. And higher than 0.01 that we got from another one. But yeah, there's other banks. Maybe they're interested, maybe they're not. So. You're laughing about?
I'm just laughing at the way you said that. Higher than point nothing. 0.00 nothing.
I get it. The rates are low, but
Right. So no, here's where my head's at, and this isn't always, the financial aspect. Is it adding more to your plate right now, or is this really just part of the drill of the finances, and we just have to keep on top of these kinds of things so that we are getting the best bang for our money?
me?
Both.
Yeah. Right? Like, it is one more thing, but at the same time, we do need to know where our money's going and what our bang for our buck is. So I don't think it's a bad thing to do. In addition, it's another thing to do. And
Right.
it's something you haven't done for 12 years. That doesn't mean it's not good to look at it and start the process.
Correct.
Yeah, that's where my head's at. So what do we need to do to move it forward?
When would you like to review the proposals at the finance committee? Would we like to do it in February or March? Because that impacts when I send these out and what the deadline is for returning them.
What's easier for you?
I'm okay if I send it out now and they're due back, say, February 19th.
Go for it. Jim, Board Chair Brian,
I don't want to spend a bunch of time looking at them. I want you to compile them when they get them, make a recommendation, and let's go forward from that. I don't want to be
Okay.
sitting there, okay, should we pick Associated Bank? Should we pick Merchants? Should we pick First Farmers and Merchants? Should we pick
I agree.
Wells Fargo? No, come back with, maybe there's nothing there, maybe it's whatever, but it doesn't hurt to look at things periodically. I mean, if it's.
And it also alerts the local banks that we are looking, that we're interested.
Nothing against
Right.
First Farmers and Merchants, but
No.
it's healthy to look at things down there every now and then.
Okay.
Yep. And I will send it out to then any bank who has a branch in Red Wing.
Perfect.
Yeah. FDIC or I think credit unions they're called something else. They have some other type of terminology.
No, I'd have to look into that. I don't know if the credit union
That's fine.
could do or pledges or not, but I'd have to look at that.
That's fine. Just so you know, Madam Chair, this is the longest finance meeting I've ever been on.
Just so you know, I didn't want to stop you from talking. You're a chatterbox.
The longest operation meeting I ever done was my first one with Arlen. We had that was like 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Was I there?
Uh,
No, I wasn't there that year. Well, I've learned a tremendous amount, and I know I'm going to be learning a lot more in the next year. So, is there anything else? We kind of got the agenda set for February of
Mhm.
all the things we have to review.
I'm hoping we can get it in an hour because there is a workshop scheduled that night.
We'll
We
have-
will make sure we get it in an hour because we
Yep.
went through a lot of it tonight. And I appreciate everybody's time.
All right.
Thank you for teaching me.
Have a good night, everybody.
Are you going to adjourn it? Are you going to give me a motion?
I'll motion to adjourn. You have
So
to
moved.
second it now, you know, because there's only
Right.
two of us.
I'll second it. Meeting adjourned at 6:39 p.m.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.